For Illinois Public Media, I'm Harrison Malkin. Today, I'm doing the first of a series of interviews with congressional candidates running for office ahead of the November general election. For this show on August 4th, 2022, I'm speaking with Democratic candidate Paul Lange. Paul Lange is running for office in the 15th Congressional District against Mary Miller. Miller topped incumbent Congressman Rodney Davis in the primary. Paul is with me here at the University of Illinois campus at Springfield. Paul, thank you for sitting down with me.
Well, thanks for having me, Harrison.
Of course. So first, I want to do this for viewers. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your political background.
First off, I live right now in Quincy, Illinois, which is in the far west side of the district. I've been involved with politics recently since 2018. And I'm mostly in the capacity of helping candidates, statewide candidates or even local candidates with their campaigns, doing door-to-door, that type of thing. Before that, in the 90s, 94 and 96, I ran for state representative from that area. I think it was the 96th district. So that generally is my political background, other than the issues that are facing our country right now.
I know you were a commodities broker. You were also a precinctman.
Yes.
Right? Anything else that people should know about your background?
Well, I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. Well, in that area. I moved here in 1974 to Adams County. I wanted to experience what it was like on a farm, working a farm, what they did, those type of things. It's kind of different. And then I just happened to, I don't know when I'll use the word love, but I just like the area that I'm in, out of Adams County. So over time, I eventually got a degree in MIS at Quincy University. And I taught for a while at the university, also at John Wood Community College, just your basic intro level classes. And in 94, somebody talked me into running for state representative. It was fun. I didn't do real well. I think I got 28 or 29%, but I got to meet a lot of people doing door to door.
So now you're running in the congressional election, and I'm curious what compelled you to run, because obviously this is a heavily Republican district, right?
That's what compelled me. I knew it was highly unlikely that anyone else would run. In 2018, I helped a probably more qualified candidate, Junius Rodriguez, run against Darren LaHood. That was the 18th congressional district. Well, Junius didn't have a lot of money for his campaign, so he had to keep working. So he wasn't able to get out full-time campaigning in the season. As a commodity broker, I was thinking about retiring at the end of the year. I just thought I'd move it up a little if I got the nod to be the person running. And so that's what I did. That's how it came about. I want to see a person out there stressing certain issues. I can get into the issues if you want, or do you want to wait?
We will. So on your point, I mean, you got thousands of votes in this primary, right? Do you think that there is a Democratic population of voters in the 15th district and in your hometown of Quincy that feel underrepresented, that need somebody like you to support them?
Yes. Just to show you an example, we have throughout the whole district, as a matter of fact. Like I said, I was in down south last night. There's a lot of people who depend on Social Security. Now, recently, the Republicans, Mr. Scott from Florida, Senator, who is in charge of the Republican campaign for 2022, the Senate campaign, has proposed possibly sunsetting Social Security and Medicare. So yes, I think there's a lot of people out there that would not be happy if that happened. The senator from Wisconsin, Mr. Johnson, I think has also chimed in lately that he'd like to see it. And I think Mr. Graham from South Carolina. So you've got three prominent Republicans who are saying, well, Social Security, but I think it's very vital for this area.
Right.
One thing.
It's something that affects your constituents.
Yes.
So two bills that we've seen recently are the Social Security Fairness Act, which is being led by Congressman Rodney Davis, but also it's very bipartisan. And there's also the Social Security Sacred Trust Act, which is a bit more progressive. And that has, I think, over 200 co-sponsors as well. Are either or both of those things something that you support?
Yes. I can support anything that strengthens Social Security. Now, recently, AARP came out with a pretty good article, and they had 8 items. At the moment, what I prefer is raising the cap, or also looking at defining other sources of income, such as, and I'm throwing this out, this would have to be talked about, with a lot of people. Like dividends that corporations collect, or things like that. Maybe that needs to be thrown into the income pool. I don't want to see benefits cut at the moment. And I had actually 2 customers recently, commodity customers. One retired from UPS. He'd worked 30 to 40 years, but his body is kind of been through the grinder, not to use that term, but well, I do use it. And I know another person, he fixes these large tires that go on tractors or whatnot. It's a heck of a job. I don't know, you see them, they're huge. And so I can see it. He didn't say anything about it to me, but it's taken a toll on him. So I hear other stories, truck drivers through the years I've known, that at a certain point their body's done. And so I don't want to see anything as far as raising the age limit to collect benefits for a lot of people.
What other economic policies would you support? Because right now it's such a precarious time, and I think we have inflation and we have wages that are not keeping up with that. So to bolster the economy of your district and also the economy, what would you be inclined to support?
Well, let me say this, and this goes to my opponent, Mary Miller. She didn't support the Infrastructure Act. I would have. And the reason is, now this is talking about the east side, or the west side, of the district along the Mississippi River, and then also the counties that border the Illinois River. This act put some money into improving the lock and dam systems on both rivers. Quincy, right now, the lock and dam there, just to give you an example, they have to break up these barges so that they can get them through the lock and dams, or the locks. So with the improvement, and you would be modernized equipment that may be years old, many years old, besides which, they would enlarge them so that you could take the whole load of barges through at one time. I forget the feet, but so that's one thing. In that side of the state, Quincy was founded on a river. Water transportation is important. And if we could move the barges up and down the Mississippi and Illinois much quicker, faster, people in this area on that side, and maybe the whole district, could benefit in this way. Water transportation is much more cheaper than. So you run the barges down to New Orleans and put them on ocean-going vessels, and you're in the global economy. Much better, much faster. My brother moved to Charleston, South Carolina recently, and so we went down to visit him. And when you see those large ships coming in with the containers, things, because that economy in that area is just booming, really booming. So I think that would improve, for one. I like the idea also in that act about the internet access. I was in Bond County, last night, and they're at like 42% as far as people having 1 gig of internet, as far as the amount of data that's moved in some capacity. So the idea would be to get it close to 100%, which would help those people possibly, would give them a better opportunity to use the internet to help themselves.
Because that's a rural issue, right? The
Right.
lack of access to broadband connection. But I think it's often seen as not as important in rural areas.
I think, and this is an opinion I have, I've been around farmers, my customers. They are very efficient at what they do, very good at what they do. They know how to raise corn and soybeans. Anything else that we can do to help them market them, I think is a benefit to the whole area. This is largely agricultural. As you know, a lot of the cities like Decatur, Champaign, Urbana, Springfield have been cut out of the 15th and put in the 13th. So that's what I'm looking. That's one area I'm looking at.
How would you describe your connection to agricultural issues? I know before we started this conversation, you were saying you've worked on a farm before, right?
Yes. This was many years ago,
we have
though.
2 farmers in this race.
Yes. Well, she's more up to date that way, but this would have been back in the 70s. And things have changed quite a bit. When I moved here in the 70s, if you had 200 to 400 acres, you could raise a family. That's not the case anymore. And also, everyone had, or not everyone, but most everybody had livestock. Cattle, a few cattle, and some hogs. Hogs are basically more in the large industrial complexes. So what I know from my customers is marketing is a big thing. If I can, let's just use the USDA as an example. They come out with estimates through the year, and they're always large estimates of what the crop will be. And the commercials buying the crop use it kind of to beat on the farmer, saying, oh, you got all this huge crop. Whereas you take corn. Corn can be used for so many things in today's world. And I should have brought a list so I could go through them, but it's not like the corn when I moved here. You know, you just fed it to an animal then. Now they process it. They come up with animal feed. They come up with ethanol, but they also come up with any number of other things. So it's just this kind of almost a miracle thing that because of development, because of research. So anything I can do to help further that along, that's one thing I'd like to, get involved in. Talking about inflation, though, a couple things as far as farmers. One is the ability, and things are changing, and I don't know everything as far as the federal level. I know there's a case on the state level of trying to help farmers be able to repair their own equipment. Now, the John Deere, to name one, and they're not an evil company or anything, but they're out to make money. That's why they're a corporation and this and that. They have a lot of proprietary things on their equipment so that they don't just let anybody work on it. Well, the costs have gone up quite a bit to fix that equipment. Now, when I moved here, farmers did a lot of the repair work themselves. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So that would help cost-wise, keep the cost down, help lessen the inflation the farmer's feeling. Second thing is we have 4 major packers in the area, meat packers, beef packers, and they have, and the administration has pointed this out, been making large profits, let's just say somewhat excessive. So they're paying a cow-calf person X amount of money for their steers and calves, whereas they're charging the public in the grocery store another level, quite a bit higher. So I'm in favor of anything to increase competition, give the farmers a chance to make more money, and also bring down costs for the consumer.
So you were talking about a major company like John Deere, but also meat packing, and then we were talking about local family farmers as well. And so I was curious your thought on the connection between climate change and agricultural issues.
I think there is a connection to a certain extent because most of the machinery that I know of still use carbon-based things. And I don't see that changing for a while. But there are things that can be done. One thing would be cover crops. So if the government, promoted cover crops, might be one way to help with the carbon situation. I don't see it as much as other, let me just say that. I grew up in Baltimore, not to move to something else, but the amount of time that cars spend idling in big cities where the fuel is being burnt, but not the car isn't moving anywhere, is mind-boggling.
Yeah, that's connected to mass transportation, which is lacking in major cities. And so what kind of other solutions would you support? Would you support the Green New Deal if you were elected?
Yeah, I do, to a certain extent. I don't know how fast our economy can move that way. If you have somebody economically having trouble making their car payments now, telling them to buy a new car, you can't do it all in one big rush. So I'm more of a gradualist. We don't have the infrastructure as far as electric vehicles that I understand. And of course, one thing there too is the material we need to make the batteries. That's a big question mark out there. So there's a lot of question marks. I believe there is global warming. I don't know that you just can't stop the economy. To give you another thing, around here in the winter we can get pretty cold. So people can't rely at the moment on the solar and the wind turbines. They've got to stay warm. So we do need some carbon-based things. But I'm, in favor of moving towards, let's say nuclear. If we got to a point where we could safely make nuclear power plants, to me that's one way to look at it, possibly.
There's two issues I want to transition to. The first is gun violence, which has been a major topic of concern. Obviously, in Illinois, we had a tragic shooting recently in Highland Park. And according to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been over 300 mass shootings so far this year. What would you suggest? What would you like to see to address this issue?
Well, the first thing I would do, which would have been different from what they passed recently in Congress, I would like to see anyone under 21, the age of 21, can't buy an assault weapon legally. Now, we know it's always possible that somebody can come in and steal their parents' gun or whatever. To me, that's a start. It's not taking anybody's guns away, and I don't favor taking everybody's guns away, that type of thing. But it would be a start to recognize that somebody being able to go with an assault weapon into a school or a shopping center, or a grocery store or a parade, and just mowing down people, we just can't, that's not acceptable. So that's, to me, a start. In this district, I would have to really be working and talking to the people, the voters, the citizens of the district, because at the moment, if I said too much anyway, they wouldn't be for it. And I have to say, I own a gun, I have a license, I don't hunt, it's just a pistol. But I'm not against gun ownership, but this massacre of people that we're seeing is It's not acceptable in a society, a civilized society, in my opinion.
What do you think has caused this? Because we haven't always seen this kind of level of mass shootings in the U.S.
Well, some of it is maybe has to do with the marketing of these assault weapons. Some of it is, I think, there's out and about the countryside, and it's not just this district. There's a lot of people that have, some use the word of mental problems or this or that, but there's also, from my doing door to door, and our group in Quincy doing door to door, there's a certain amount of hopelessness, or it's kind of hard to describe. It's like a blight that is moving through our society. And I don't have all the answers, to be frank with you, as I'm speaking with you now. But there's some people that just don't feel like they have any hope for tomorrow.
I think another issue that's caused that blight for some people across the country is the recent overruling of Roe v. Wade, which ended people's access and right to abortion across the country, though in certain states, like in Illinois, it's protected. So on a federal level, what would you like to see put in place to protect that?
Well, let me say this. In 94 and 96, I got to ask the question about abortion quite a bit. And at that time, much to the consternation of some people I knew, I said, I believe a woman has a right to choose. So let me make this statement and then how to go forward, in my opinion. I believe every woman has the right to choose their own destiny. I don't want to get into all these aspects of abortion and this and that, but that's my basic. Now, to get to a level that the society could, in my opinion, I'm going to bring up something new that I am throwing out, and that would be what I would propose, something called the American People's Referendum Act, where literally we had a nationwide referendum on certain issues. One of them would be, does a woman have a right to choose or not? In Kansas, we saw it was to keep the Constitution the way it was, if I'm not mistaken, to which where a woman has a right to an abortion. We need to come to a consensus that the society as a whole can live with, in my opinion. In Ireland, they had a national referendum, and it's kind of held. They the whole nation said, yes, we want abortions legal. So that's where I think they're, and to go back on the gun issue, I think it would be a perfect thing to ask the nation, should someone under the age of 21 be able to buy an assault weapon? I mean, I might be surprised. It might be the answer, yeah, you should be able to. I don't know, but if the society doesn't accept a change, it's hard to implement that change. In other words, change, in my opinion, is best when it comes and moves upward. If it comes down and it's a change that people don't like, it causes problems, in my opinion.
What other issues would you like to see go up for a referendum?
Concerning climate change. If, let's just say somebody had an item and laid out, let's say for 20 years. We're going to do this to get from this point with, let's say, gas powered cars to move to electric cars. If we could do that in a way that the whole country got involved in the decision, I think it would go better, in my opinion. I go back to World War II. Now, there was a group of people that figured there was going to be a problem coming. The president among them, President Roosevelt. But there's another group of people who didn't want to get involved in this, in the situation in Europe. And then we have all of a sudden bombing by the Japanese of our facilities in Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. People lined up, what I understand, at the recruiting offices, at the draft boards, whatever. People took their place. Let's say somebody was working at a factory or something, and so they decided that they were going to go to war, go off and fight the war. Other people came and took their place at the factories. So production and the country, everybody sacrificed towards the end of beating Nazi Germany and Japan. Everybody came together. To me, issues that encompass everybody, if we could figure out a way that the country could come together instead of fighting the way we do, we could solve a lot more things, in my opinion.
Do you expect to receive support from either the state or National Democratic Party?
Well, I have a little support from the state, but not necessarily. This district, as you know, because you've been studying it, is not designed for a Democrat to win at the moment. I like to think and I have to point this out too, but on the local level, I have a lot of support. I wouldn't have a chance without people like Larry. I'm not supposed to look that way, but Larry is over there. So, no, I don't look for it necessarily.
Can you explain that though, just to give the context, like how are people on the ground, like Larry, how are grassroots organizers helping your campaign?
Well, we're going to start something Saturday going door to door, but other ways, they drive me places. We got 35 counties, as you know, and they're spread out all over heck. It's a large territory. And I'm older, so it's better if if I do drive, somebody's there to knock me once in a while. But there they've driven me over. They help me with brochures and things like that. And they're setting up social media for me. So that's how, things like that. Little things that mean a lot.
Last question, your elevator pitch. I mean, we've talked about a lot of the issues, but if you were to synthesize why somebody should vote for you in the 15th district, what would it be?
One, I want to strengthen Social Security. I don't want it to be sunsetted. And that's the same for Medicare and Medicaid. That's the first one. The second one is, because of what's going on, I believe every woman has the right to choose their destiny. Those are the two things.
Paul, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
For Illinois Public Media, I'm Harrison Malkin.